I opened my mailbox like I always do. Bills, flyers, coupons. Then I saw the envelope, thicker than the rest. No logo, no return name, just one line in bold, final notice. I didn't open it right there. I walked inside, set it on the counter, and stared at it like it might move. When I tore it open, the paper inside was crisp. Too crisp, like it had been waiting. A header at the top, a table in the middle, and one number that didn't make sense. $10,000. Due in 14 days, 10,000, for an HOA rule. I read the reason line. Repeated violation, failure to comply, administrative costs. No photo, no date, no description beyond standards, just a total, and a deadline. Here's my first question for you. If you got a bill like that, would you pay fast to stop the threat? Or would you demand proof and risk the clock? Because they didn't just mention fees, they hinted at the next step. Collections, and words you never want attached to your address. I won't turn this into legal talk. I'll keep it plain. When someone even hints they can mess with your home, your body treats it like a fire alarm. So I sat down at my kitchen table and did something simple. I pulled out my folder. Every homeowner eventually makes one, a just-in-case folder. Mine was thin, until that day. Inside were 2 earlier letters. The first was a courtesy reminder. It claimed my trash bins were visible from the street. No photo, no timestamp. Just visible. I remember shrugging when I read it. Fine. Easy fix. I moved the bins behind my side gate the same afternoon. Then I added a cheap screen panel so you couldn't see them even if the gate shifted. Nothing dramatic. Just neat. And, because I've learned a quiet rule about paper systems, if you can't prove you fixed it, they can claim you didn't. I took one photo when I finished. One. Then I emailed that photo to myself. Subject line. Bins moved. Boring. On purpose. 2 weeks later, letter number 2 arrives. Not courtesy this time. Notice of fine. It said the violation was not corrected. That's when my stomach turned, because it was corrected. So either they had old info, or they had the wrong home, or someone didn't care. And here's the part that matters. If they can mark you non-compliant, even when you're compliant, then this stops being about trash bins. It becomes about control of the record. Because whoever controls the record, controls the outcome. I called the management number on the letter. A woman answered with a polished voice. I'll call her Tara. I said, "Hi, I got a fine notice. What date was the inspection?"
Our records indicate it's ongoing.
I said, "Right. What date?"
The record is current.
So I tried again. Do you have a photo?
We don't always include photos.
Do you have one?
Our system shows the violation is open.
So I asked for the rule number.
Reads it fast.
Then I asked, where does it say $50 a day?
That's the standard schedule. It's in our policies.
I asked, where can I read it? She said, it's in our policies. I said, can you email the policy?
I'll request it.
That's when I stopped speaking like a neighbor and started speaking like a calendar. Short, specific, dated. I sent an email while she was still on the line. 3 sentences. I dispute this fine. The bins were moved on. Date. Please provide 1. Date-stamped photo evidence. 2. The fine schedule policy. And 3. The inspection log entry. Then I attached my photo. 2 days later, I got a reply. 1 sentence. Per our records, the violation remained.
I didn't sleep great that night. Not because I was scared of trash can rules, because the letter wasn't about trash cans. It was about what they could say on paper, and what they could charge based on it. The next morning, I did the first thing people forget. I read their own documents. Not the letter. The governing packet. The stuff everyone signs and never opens again. I searched for the word fine, then hearing, then notice. And I found a line that mattered. Owners must receive notice of the alleged violation and an opportunity to be heard. Alleged. That one word was the hinge, because alleged means it's a claim, not a fact, and claims require support. So I built a clean checklist titled, What I'm Asking For. Once. Not 10 emails. Not a rant. Just a list. Date-stamped photos. Inspection log entry. Fine schedule policy fee, authorization hearing procedure. Then I wrote a second email, even shorter than the first. Hi Tara, thanks for the reply. Please send the supporting photo and inspection log for the most recent inspection. Also, please attach the fine schedule policy and any written policy authorizing the added fees. I hit send. And that's when they switched tactics, because 2 hours later, I got a new email. Same thread, same subject, but a different voice. This one was from the management rep I'd heard about from neighbors, the guy who handles disputes. I'll call him Miles. His email was polite, but slippery.
Thank you for reaching out. Our system indicates the violation remains open. Please ensure compliance to avoid additional charges.
That's not a response. That's a warning wrapped in a sentence. I replied with one line, please attach the evidence and the fine policy. Miles answered,
We don't always provide internal materials.
There it was again, internal, as if a photo of your own home is classified. So I asked for the hearing packet. If there's a hearing, please send the packet you'll rely on. He said,
Hearings are informal, no packet is provided.
Informal, another word people use when they don't want rules to apply. Here's why that matters. If you don't know what they'll claim, you can't prepare. And if you can't prepare, the hearing becomes a performance, not a process. And right on schedule, a hearing notice arrived. 7 minutes, not joking. 7 minutes to explain why their file was wrong, without seeing the file. That was the moment my approach changed. I stopped trying to win the hearing. I started building a record that would outlast the hearing. Because if they were treating this like a checkbox, I was going to treat it like a case file. I printed my timeline. Then I printed my photo. Twice. One copy for the board, one copy for management. Then I wrote 3 questions on a clean sheet of paper. Questions you can answer with facts. What is the inspection date? What evidence supports the claim? Where is the fine schedule published? If you want to dodge, those questions make it hard, because you either give a date or you admit you don't have one. While I was doing this, the fine meter kept running. That's the part most people don't understand until they're in it. HOA fines aren't scary because they're true. They're scary because they compound. They're designed to punish delay. So I checked my ledger again. It had jumped. Not to 10,000 yet, but enough to get your attention. And there were line items that didn't match any notice I received. Processing, inspection, admin, and one that made me laugh in disbelief. Legal review. Legal review. For a trash can letter. I opened the email thread and asked one question. Please identify who performed legal review and provide the policy that authorizes this charge. Then I did something important. I didn't add anything else. No sarcasm, no anger. One clean request. That one question hung there like a weight, because if they answered, it would create a record. And if they ignored it, that would also create a record. And that's when I stopped calling completely. From this point on, written only. Because a phone call lets people pretend they told you. Writing forces them to show it. So when the hearing day came, I wasn't walking in to argue. I was walking in to do 3 things. Ask for the evidence, ask for the policy, ask for the inspection date, and if they refused, good. Because refusal is its own kind of receipt.
The hearing was on a weekday afternoon. I walked to the clubhouse with my binder tucked under my arm like homework. Neat tabs, clean printouts, 1 page on top, my timeline. Inside, the hearing room was just a side lounge with a folding table. 3 chairs on one side, 1 chair on the other. The board members were already seated, and in the center was the president, Renee. No handshake, no thanks for coming. Just a clipboard and a look that said, wrap it up.
Renee started reading like she'd done it 100 times. Owner has an unresolved violation. Owner failed to comply. Fines assessed per policy.
I raised my hand, calm. Before we start, can I see the evidence?
Renee didn't blink. We don't need to provide evidence. Our inspections confirm it.
I asked the easiest follow-up in the world. Okay, what date was the inspection?
Renee said, recent.
I said, what date? Miles stared at his laptop.
Our system indicates the violation remains open.
System indicates open. Those words sound official, but they're empty until someone puts a date next to them, so I slid my photo across the table. This is the bin area after I moved them. Timestamp is on the image. This was done on date. Renee looked at it like it was a menu.
Then she said something that made my eyebrows lift. Photos can be misleading.
Photos can be misleading. I didn't argue, I didn't laugh. I asked the next question. What exactly is the claim today? Is it that the bins are visible? Is it the pickup window? Is it the location? What is the specific issue right now?
Miles answered, bins visible from the street.
I said, when?
He said, ongoing.
I said, do you have a photo dated after my correction date? And Paul read and done.
He said that we don't always take photos.
So I asked the question that forces a fork in the road. Then what are we relying on today? Beating stocks of wine body dollars.
Renee's voice sharpened. This is your opportunity to be heard. We are not required to debate. The fine stands.
That was the moment I understood what this hearing was. Not a search for truth. A checkbox. Opportunity offered. Hearing held. Decision already set. So I stopped trying to convince them. I switched to building the record. I said, I'm requesting 3 things in writing. I held up my printed questions. 1. The inspection date. 2. The evidence. Photos, notes, anything. 3. The fine schedule policy, including authority for the added fees.
Renee said, denied. Just the word, no explanation.
So I asked, denied under what rule? She said, we don't have to provide internal materials. There it is again, internal. As if my own front walkway is a restricted file. Then I asked for the vote record. Can you show me where the board approved fines for my account?
Renee said, we don't need to show you that.
I looked down at my binder, looked back up, and I asked one more direct question. This one for you too. If someone can charge you daily, add fees and refuse to show the policy, what stops them from doing it again?
Renee ended the hearing like she was closing a drawer. Pay the balance to avoid further action. And as I stood to leave, she added the line that turned my stomach. If you don't pay, collections may begin.
Collections. That word isn't a fine. It's a pressure tactic. It's meant to make you move fast and think slow. So I did the opposite. I moved slow. And I wrote. That evening, I opened a blank document, title in bold, formal dispute, document request. Then I wrote like someone who expects to be misunderstood on purpose. Short sentences, clear asks, clean dates. I listed everything they refused to show. Inspection log photos, with timestamps, fine policy, fee authority decision record, and I added one line at the end that mattered more than the rest. Please respond in writing, because if they wanted to treat this like a quiet little clubhouse conversation, I was going to turn it into something that couldn't be hand-waved, not with anger, with paper.
That letter took me an hour to write, and 5 minutes to cut down, because the first draft sounded like frustration, the final draft sounded like a timeline. Pause. I kept it simple. Hello, I dispute the alleged violation. I corrected the issue on date. Please provide the records listed below. Then I listed them. Clean, numbered, boring on purpose. The inspection log entry for the inspection that triggered the fine, any photos relied upon with timestamps, the fine schedule policy including daily fine authority, the policy authorizing additional fees, the record of board action approving fines on my account, a complete ledger with explanations for each line item. Then I added one sentence that changed the whole tone. Please preserve all records related to this matter. Not a threat, a reminder. And I printed it. Now here's the part people skip. I didn't just email it. I mailed it certified. Because emails get missed. Letters get signed for. That little green receipt is boring until you need it. I dropped it off, took a photo of the tracking number, day 26, document request sent, certified. Then I did something that felt ridiculous, but worked. I built an evidence board. Not strings and thumbtacks like a movie, just a wall on my office corkboard. Letter 1, courtesy notice. Letter 2, fine notice. Email thread. My timestamp photo. Hearing notice, hearing outcome. Fine stands. Document request, sent certified. And I put one big note at the top. The claim must match the record. 2 days later, the tracking showed, delivered, signature captured, receipt saved. And you'd think that's when they'd send the file. Instead, I got a new ledger. It arrived like a receipt from a store you didn't visit. The total was higher, and now the fee list was longer. Not just fines. New items, re-inspection, admin processing, account maintenance, and again, legal review. Legal review twice. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a fine, it was a billing ladder. Each time I asked for proof, they added a rung. And I want you to answer this. If a system charges you more when you ask questions, what does that teach people to do? Stay quiet, pay fast, move on. Pause. I didn't move on. I answered the ledger with a ledger. I opened a spreadsheet and copied every line item into my own list. Date, amount, description. Then I wrote one question next to each fee. Re-inspection. Which inspection? What date? Admin processing. Where is this authorized? Legal review. By whom? For what purpose? Because if they wanted to bill like a business, they could explain like a business. That same afternoon, I got an email from Miles. 2 sentences. Your request has been received. The association is not required to provide internal documents. Please remit payment to avoid further action. Not required. Internal. Avoid action. 3 phrases designed to end the conversation. So I replied with one paragraph. No heat. Thank you. Please confirm whether the association maintains date-stamped photo evidence for this violation and whether the fine policy and fee policy are published to owners. If yes, please provide them. If no, please state that in writing. Yes or no, that's the trapdoor, because yes means they must send it, and no means they admit the file is thin. Then I waited. 2 business days, no response. So I followed up. Same thread, same tone. Following up on my request for evidence and the published fine fee policy. No response again. And that's when I got the twist. At 7:06 a.m., a new email arrived. From a different address. Not Tara, not Miles. It was the HOA board's generic inbox. Subject line. Violation photo attached. Finally. A photo. I opened it, ready to be proven wrong. And for a half second my stomach dropped, because the timestamp was after my fix date. But then I looked closer. The fence color in the photo was white. Mine is brown. Not my yard, not my gate, not my bins. Just someone else's violation wearing my account number. And right then, the whole story snapped into focus. They weren't fining me because I refused to comply. They were fining me because their file was sloppy, and their process didn't care. So I did the only thing you do when you catch a mistake like that. I didn't celebrate. I documented it. I saved the attachment, screenshotted the timestamp, and pulled up my own photo beside it. 2 images, 2 fences, 2 realities. And I wrote one new line at the top of my evidence board. The proof doesn't match the home.
Didn't reply with gotcha. I didn't write, you're wrong. I wrote one sentence that forced precision. Thank you for the photo. This does not match my property. Please confirm the unit identifier used by the inspector and provide the inspection log entry tied to this image. Then I attached my own photo, again, side by side, white fence, brown fence, no opinions, just contrast. If you've ever dealt with a messy system, you know what happens next. They don't admit it right away. They stall. Miles replied 2 hours later. Thank you, we will review. Review, as if fence color is a riddle. So I tightened the request. I asked for 3 specific items. The inspection log entry for the photo they sent, the inspector's unit identifier method, unit number, map, list, whatever they use. Their procedure for correcting misidentified violations, because if they misidentified mine once, it could happen again. And not just to me. I also asked a simple, yes/no question. Are fines paused while you review misidentification? That question matters, because if fines keep running while they review, then the review is just decoration. And I want you to think about this. If someone bills you daily based on a file they won't show, is that a rule system or a pressure system? While I waited, I did a second check. Quiet, careful. Not spying, not drama, just consistency. On trash pickup day, I walked my street. Wide shots only, no faces, no doors, no unit numbers. 2 homes had bins visible the same way mine supposedly was. No notices on their doors, no stickers, no letters. So either the HOA didn't care, or the HOA cared about one person. That's the stakes reframe. This wasn't about a bin, it was about selective attention, and selective attention always has a reason. Now, I didn't accuse neighbors. I didn't point fingers. I wrote it as a question. Please confirm whether enforcement is applied consistently. If inspections are routine, please provide the inspection schedule and logs for the last 30 days for my street. That's it. Because if they claim routine inspections, there should be a routine record. Then another letter arrived. Not an apology, not a correction, a demand. Payment required to avoid further action, and in smaller text, disputes do not suspend obligations. That line is designed to trap you. It pushes you toward paying without fixing the file. So I answered with the same calm question again. Please confirm in writing whether fines are continuing to accrue during review of misidentification. Yes or no? No speeches. The next day, I got a reply from Miles. He didn't answer yes or no. He wrote, please ensure compliance. Compliance with what? My bins were behind the gate. My photo showed it, and their photo wasn't my home. So I replied with a single line, please state the specific current condition you claim is non-compliant and provide evidence dated after fixed date. Then I did the third move that always helps later. I mailed a second certified letter. Same requests, same calm tone, because I wanted 2 timestamps, 1 digital, 1 signed. And that's when something happened that I didn't expect. A neighbor I barely knew stopped me while I was bringing groceries in.
They said, are you dealing with HOA letters too?
I froze for a second. I said, why?
They said they warned me for something that isn't mine.
Different issue. Same vibe. And that told me my problem wasn't rare. It was a system that didn't double check. At that point, I made a choice. I was done trying to solve this in private emails. I was going to put it into the public part of their process. The next board meeting, open forum, and I wasn't bringing anger. I was bringing 1 page. Their wrong photo. My correct photo. The unanswered yes. No question about fines. Because when a board has to face a mismatch in front of the room, it's harder to brush off. So, I circled the date on my calendar, and I wrote the 3 questions I planned to ask. Again, not new ones, the same ones, because repetition is what turns a request into a record. Low atmospheric bed, steady. Add a soft pulse at 2610 during escalation. Drop pulse at 28 batter for evidence clarity. Twist sting at 2920. The board meeting night, I didn't bring a binder. I brought 1 page, because a binder lets people say, we'll review. 1 page forces yes or no. I sat near the back and watched the routine stuff roll by: landscaping contract, pool hours, budget line items. Then Renee said the words I'd been waiting for. Open forum. Music, soft pulse begins. I stood up. I didn't start with my feelings. I started with the mismatch. Good evening, I'm Alex. I'm here about the fines on my account. The HOA sent a photo as evidence. That photo does not match my property. I held up the one-page sheet. 2 images. White fence on the left, brown fence on the right. Then I asked the first question. Slow. What unit identifier was used when this photo was taken? Renee's mouth opened, then closed. She glanced at Miles.
Miles said, "We'll have to check the system."
I nodded. Please do, and please answer this next part clearly. Are fines paused while you check mice identification? Silence. That silence was loud, because if the answer was no, fines are still running, they didn't want to say it in a room full of neighbors. If the answer was yes, fines are paused, they could have said it instantly. So, I asked the question a third way. Can you confirm in writing by tomorrow whether fines are accruing during review? So.
Renee said, "We don't handle that in open forum."
That's the dodge, so I didn't argue. I made it a record. Please note in the meeting minutes that I asked whether fines are accruing during review of misidentification, and the board declined to answer. On us, Frau Perstein of Dessen Daten the Board Sen. The secretary looked up and nodded. That nod was everything, because once it's in minutes, it's harder to pretend it never happened. Music dropped slightly for clarity. Then I asked my second question. Where is the fine schedule policy published to owners?
Renee said, "It's standard."
I said, where can a homeowner read it today?
Renee said, "It's available."
I said, where? Miles shifted in his chair again, and this time, instead of a dodge, he offered a half step.
We can send the policy page.
I said, great, please include the adoption date and the board approval record. He didn't answer, so I moved to question 3. Who authorized the legal review fees on my ledger, and what written policy allows those charges?
Miles said, "Those are administrative."
I said, that's not what I asked. I asked what policy allows it. And here's the thing. I wasn't trying to embarrass anyone, but when you ask a clean question and the room watches the non-answer becomes the story. Music, pulse builds slightly. Renee tried to end it.
"We can discuss this offline."
I kept my tone even. I'm happy to discuss offline, but I'm also requesting the board vote to pause fines pending correction, since the evidence provided does not match my home.
Renee said no, just no.
No motion, no vote, so I asked for one more record entry. Please note in the minutes, I requested a vote to pause fines due to mismatched evidence and the board refused. Then I sat down. That was it. No lecture, no debate. 1 page, 3 questions, 2-minute requests. Music eases down. After the meeting ended, Miles approached me, not in front of everyone, off to the side. His tone was softer than usual.
He said, "We can probably adjust the account once we confirm."
I asked, when will you confirm?
He said, "Soon."
I said, define soon. He exhaled. Then he said something that changed everything.
Sometimes inspectors log the wrong unit.
I didn't react. I didn't say, I knew it. I just said, thank you. Please put that in writing. He nodded. Reluctant, but nodded. When I got home, I wrote a recap email while the moment was fresh, short, neutral. Thank you for speaking with me after the meeting. You stated inspectors sometimes log the wrong unit. Please confirm this in writing and confirm fines are paused effective today while the file is corrected. Then, I attached the 1-page sheet again. And I set a deadline, not an ultimatum, a date. Please respond by date. Because deadlines create structure. Structure limits wandering. Before bed, I updated my timeline. New entry. Day 36. Management acknowledged wrong unit logging is possible, and I wrote one note to myself in big letters. Don't let them review forever, because review is what they say when they want time. Time is what makes the number grow. So tomorrow, if they didn't confirm fines were paused, I had the next step ready. Not yelling. Another paper. The next morning, I didn't wake up to an answer. No, fines paused. No, we made a mistake. No, here's the file. Just silence. Then at 9:17 a.m., a new email popped up. Not from Miles, not from the generic HOA inbox, from a board member's personal address. I'll call him Jordan. Subject line.
Need clarification?
The message was short.
Can you resend the photo comparison? Trying to understand what happened.
That was the first real crack, because it meant someone on the board was asking questions, inside the room I couldn't see. I replied in 2 minutes. No speech, no emotion. I attached 3 things. Their photo, white fence. My photo, brown fence. A simple labeled comparison sheet, white, brown, different gate, different walkway. Then I wrote 1 sentence. This evidence doesn't match my property. So mine's, distant mine's. 10 minutes later, Jordan replied.
Understood, I'm forwarding this.
Forwarding. That word matters. It means the paper moved. An hour passed, then Miles finally wrote back on the main thread. Different tone, less records indicate, more cautious.
Thank you for your patience. We are reviewing the inspector entry and will advise.
Advise. Still vague. So I answered with the same clean yes-no question. Again. Please confirm whether fines are paused effective today while you correct misidentification. No extra words. 2 hours later he replied,
We will provide an updated statement.
He still didn't say, paused, not yes, not no, so I did what I've been doing this whole time. I made it a record. Please state yes or no, are fines still accruing during review? While I waited, another attachment came in, from Miles. Subject.
Requested documents.
Finally, 2 files, one labeled inspection log, the other fine policy. I opened the inspection log first. It was partial, not a full month, not the schedule, just a strip of entries, and there was my unit number on it. For a second I thought, okay, progress. Then I read the notes. The inspector wrote, corner lot, bins visible from side street. I stared at that line. Because I'm not on a corner, I don't face a side street. My home sits mid-row. That's mismatch number 2, not fence color now. Location. So I opened the fine policy page. 1 page, no header date, no adoption date, no meeting minutes reference. Just a table of amounts, $50 per day, admin fees, re-inspection fees. It looked like something typed up after the fact, not something properly issued to owners. And now, I had a clean picture. Their evidence photo didn't match my property, their inspection notes didn't match my property type, their fine policy page had no approval trail, and they still wouldn't answer whether fines were running. So, I wrote a reply that stayed strictly on the record. Thank you. The inspection notes reference a corner lot and side street. My unit is not a corner lot. Please provide the unit identifier used by the inspector and the full inspection entry tied to the photo you sent. Also, please provide the adoption date and approval record for the fine policy. Then I added 1 sentence, addressed to the board too. I request the board place this correction on the next agenda and issue written closure. And here's a question for you. If their own notes describe a house that isn't yours, how many people have paid fines for someone else's violation? At 4:52 p.m., Jordan emailed again.
1 line. Thank you, this doesn't look right.
That was the second crack, because now it wasn't just me saying it, it was someone on the inside. But cracks don't stop a billing machine by themselves, so I kept my cadence. I updated my timeline. Day 37. Board member requests comparison. Day 37. Partial log received. Day 37. Log describes corner lot. Day 37. Fine policy page has no adoption record. And I wrote 1 note in bold at the bottom. Ask for the missing page. Because if they sent 1 page, there was always another page behind it. The page that shows who approved it, when, and whether it was ever shared. Right before dinner, another email arrived from Miles. No attachment this time.
We are working on correcting the file.
Working on, not corrected, not paused, not closed. So, I replied with one final line for the day. Please confirm fines are paused and provide the corrected ledger by date. Ordinet spotbook so mine body buffer bonds. Because the next move wasn't to type harder, it was to put their mismatches into a format the board couldn't ignore. One page.
By now, the trash cans were almost irrelevant. Because we weren't arguing about what I did. We were arguing about what their file said I did. And their file didn't match reality. Twice. So this is where I'm going to zoom out for a few minutes. Not legal advice. Just plain process. Because HOA disputes don't usually turn on who feels right. They turn on whether the steps were followed. Here's the basic fairness ladder most associations claim to follow. Identify the alleged issue. Give notice with enough detail to understand it. Give time to cure. Hold a hearing that isn't a formality. Record a decision you can review. That's it. When any rung is missing, the system gets sloppy. And sloppy systems bill the wrong people. Look at my case so far. First notice, no photo, no date. Fine notice, still no photo hearing, no evidence shown. Ledger, fees added without a published rule. Evidence they finally sent. Wrong fence inspection notes they sent. Wrong location type. That's not strict enforcement. That's a paper machine, running without brakes. Now here's the ethical trap. Simple. If a board refuses to show evidence and fines keep accruing anyway, the homeowner has to choose between paying to stop the bleed or fighting while the total climbs. That pressure isn't about community standards. It's about forcing a quick payment. So I built my signature layer into one page. Not a rant page, a paper trail wins page. Top section, mismatch evidence photo, doesn't match property notes, describe corner lot. Side street middle section, policy gaps. Fine policy page has no adoption record fees listed without approval reference. Bottom section, requested actions, pause fines during correction. Correct the file, issue updated ledger, provide written closure. Then I added one more segment, because this is what viewers actually learn from. What should I have done earlier? 3 moves. The first time they dodged a date, I should have switched to written only instantly. The first time they mentioned policy, I should have demanded the exact published document, not a page. Before the hearing, I should have requested the full file in certified mail, so "we don't provide" became a documented refusal sooner. None of that is heroic. It's just clean procedure. Now here's the part they didn't expect. I didn't only build a case about the bins, I built a case about the billing. Because their biggest weakness wasn't the fence photo, it was the ledger. Those extra fees. Because fees are supposed to have an origin, a rule, a vote, a written schedule. And if the origin is missing, the fee is just a number. So I wrote a new email, addressed to the board inbox and Miles, tight and polite. Thank you for the documents. The evidence and inspection notes do not match my property. Please provide 1. The complete inspection entry tied to the photo. 2. The unit identifier method used by the inspector. 3. The adoption record for the fine schedule. And 4. Written confirmation that fines are paused pending correction. Then I added a deadline, not a threat, a calendar mark. Please respond by date, as my account has received a collection warning. And I want you to answer this. If you were on that board and you saw 2 mismatches, would you pause fines immediately, or would you let the meter keep running and hope the owner gives up? Because that's the line between a mistake and misconduct. Mistake, wrong unit logged. Misconduct, continuing to bill after you know it might be wrong. That afternoon, Miles sent a reply that looked like progress. 1 sentence. Fines are under review. Under review. Still not paused, still not yes, still not no. So I replied with the same narrow question again. Yes or no, are fines accruing today? I hit send. Then I stopped typing and prepared my next move. Because at this stage, the story was no longer me versus the HOA. It was their silence versus their documents. And silence doesn't age well when you've already shown the wrong fence.
The day after I asked yes or no, nothing came back. No, paused. No, still accruing. Just quiet. And quiet is not neutral when the meter is running. So I did two things at once. One, I kept building the record. Two, I blocked the collections path as much as I could, on paper. First, I wrote a short notice titled, Accounting Dispute, Misidentified Violation. It wasn't dramatic. It said, I dispute all charges related to this alleged violation due to mismatched evidence and mismatched inspection notes. Please confirm in writing that the account will not be sent to collections while the association corrects the file. Then I listed the two mismatches again. Photo shows a white fence. My property has a brown fence. Inspection notes describe a corner lot and side street. My unit is mid-row, and I attached the comparison sheet. Then, I mailed it certified, again, because I wanted the date stamped into reality. Now, second track, I asked for something I hadn't gotten yet, the minutes, not notes, not we talked, minutes, because if the board makes decisions, the minutes are where they live. Music, faint pulse returns. I emailed the board's generic inbox, please provide the minutes for Shannon Trice of mine Nassen. One, could mine skak boodin, per kerbansin sar in de bansim mangda sir, ter one san nennes a mother brisable di natseton, in shobi bodies trisen budiston sussen too. The meeting where I requested a pause due to mismatched evidence, and I added one line, please include any motions and vote records related to my account. That afternoon, Jordan, the board member, replied, not defensive, just practical.
He said, we don't usually attach vote detail in the minutes, but I can share the draft notes.
Draft notes are still useful, because drafts show intent, they show what they plan to record. He forwarded a PDF, I opened it and scanned for my topic. There it was, under Open Forum. One sentence. Homeowner raised concerns about fines, referred to management. That's it. No mention of the mismatched photo, no mention of the question about fines accruing, no mention that I asked for a vote to pause, just referred. And that's a problem, because referred is how things vanish. So I replied, still calm, still short. Thank you, please correct the minutes to reflect. 1. HOA provided evidence photo that does not match my property. 2. Homeowner asked whether fines are accruing during review, and board declined to answer. And 3. Homeowner requested a vote to pause fines pending correction, and the board declined. No accusations, just facts. And I asked one more simple question. Will the corrected minutes be approved at the next meeting? This part matters for watch time, so I'll slow down. What I was doing was not arguing, I was tightening the public record, because if a board can quietly rewrite what happened, the dispute never ends. Now, I also did something that made my case stronger without adding drama. I created a countdown on my timeline, 14 days from the $10,000 notice. I marked, Day 1, final notice received. Day 4, mice identified photo confirmed. Day 7, minutes draft omits key facts. Day 10, collection warning still active unless paused. I wasn't trying to scare myself. I was making sure I didn't drift. Then I sent my cleanest email yet, board plus miles, 3 lines. Please confirm in writing today. 1. Are fines accruing right now? 2. Is the account being referred to collections? 3. What date will the corrected ledger be issued? 3 questions, 3 answers, or 3 dodges. Either way, it becomes a receipt. I'll ask you something. If you were in my seat, would you keep chasing the why? Or would you stick to, what's the record? Because why invites stories. What's the record forces reality. Late afternoon, Miles finally replied. 2 sentences.
We are working on correcting the file. Please allow additional time.
Still, no yes. Still, no no. So I answered with the only thing that works against vague replies, a boundary with a date. Thank you. Due to the collection warning, I need written confirmation by date that fines are paused and the account will not be referred to collections during correction. Then I prepared for the next meeting. Not to argue, to request an action on the record, pause fines, correct the file, issue written closure, and I wrote the agenda request the way you write something you want, read aloud, 1 paragraph, 1 page, no extras, because next time I wasn't bringing a pile, I was bringing emotion. The next meeting night, I arrived early again, not to argue, to be on time, because when you're dealing with a paper system, timing is part of the record. I sat down with 1 page in my hand. At the top, 3 lines, requested board action, pause fines during correction, issue, written closure. That's it. No speech on the page, no backstory, just the action. They ran through the usual agenda, pool, landscaping, budget, then Renee said it. Open forum. I stood up. Good evening, I'm Alex. I'm requesting a board action tonight. I held up the page. The HOA provided a photo that does not match my property. The inspection notes describe a corner lot and side street. My unit is mid-row. I paused. Because the evidence does not match, I'm requesting the board vote to pause fines while the file is corrected.
She said, "We don't vote on that in open forum."
Then please add it to the agenda for the next meeting as an action item.
She said no.
So, I tightened it. Please state on the record, are fines accruing today while you review mice identification?
Renee said, "This isn't the place."
That was my cue, not to push harder, to lock the moment into minutes. Please note in the minutes, I asked if fines are accruing during review of mismatched evidence, and the board declined to answer. Also note, I requested a vote to pause fines pending correction, and the board declined. Then I did one more thing. If you won't answer here, please confirm in writing by tomorrow. 1. Whether fines are accruing. 2. Whether the account is being referred to collections. And 3. The date the corrected ledger will be issued. Renee didn't answer. Miles didn't answer. Thank you. I'll wait for the written response. After the meeting, people filed out. I stayed back and watched what happens when a room empties. That's when the real conversations start.
He said, "We're working on it."
I didn't bite. I asked, "Are fines accruing tonight?" He said, "We're reviewing." I said, "That's not an answer."
He said, "They shouldn't be."
So I gave him the simplest path. Email me tonight. 1 sentence. Fines are paused. That's it. He said, "I'll see what I can do." I went home and did what I always do now. I wrote the recap while the facts were fresh. Subject line, meeting recap, request for written confirmation. Body, thank you. At the meeting, I requested a vote to pause fines pending correction due to mismatched evidence and mismatched inspection notes. The board declined. Please confirm in writing by tomorrow date. Fines accruing. 2. Any collection referral status. 3. Corrected ledger issuance date. Then I attached the comparison sheet again. I saw your request. Agree we need to pause this.
Fines will not continue to accrue while we correct the violation record.
There it was, not shouldn't, not reviewing. A sentence you can save, a sentence you can print, a sentence you can hold up later. Thank you, please confirm the effective date is today and provide the corrected ledger by date. Also, please confirm no collection referral will occur during correction. Then I added that line to my timeline. Day 52, written confirmation, fines not accruing during correction.
Once I had that sentence in writing, everything changed. Not the HOA's personality, not Renee's posture, the incentives. Because now, if they kept billing me, they'd be contradicting their own email. And paper systems hate contradictions. So I did the next boring step. I replied and asked for 3 items: effective date of the pause, corrected ledger date, confirmation. There's no collections referral during correction. Then I printed their "fines will not continue to accrue" email. Yes, printed, because printers don't crash. I slid the printout into my binder. Tab C, the Receipts tab. Then I waited. Not passively, on schedule. 2 business days later, I followed up. Same thread. Checking in. Please provide updated ledger and written closure. 1 sentence. 3 days after that, I got the update. An attachment. Updated statement. My hands actually paused over the mouse, because numbers have a way of making your brain go blank. I opened it, and I watched the balance drop, not by a little, by a lot. All those stacked charges, daily fines, admin fees, reinspection, processing, legal review, gone. The statement showed a new total, then another line, adjustment, then the final line, balance due, 0.00. I stared at it longer than I want to admit, because when you're stuck in a system that keeps saying records indicate, seeing 0 feels unreal. But I didn't celebrate yet, because a 0 balance without closure is a trap. A week later, they can say, actually, so I replied immediately, thank you. Please provide written confirmation that 1, the violation is closed, 2, the account is current, and 3, no collection activity or line action has been initiated. Then I added one more request. Please confirm the association corrected the unit identifier issue so this does not recur. Because I didn't want the next notice to start the same loop. Miles responded faster than I expected. Violation will be closed. Updated status will be reflected in the system. Not enough. Will be is future tense. I needed present tense, so I replied, please send the closure letter on association letterhead. That's the key. Letterhead turns we will into we did. At 4:18 p.m. the next day, a PDF arrived. 1 page. Formal. The kind of page that sounds like a door clicking shut. It stated, the violation has been closed. Account balance is 0.00. No further action will be taken. I read it twice. Then I did the 3-step endgame, saved it in 2 folders, printed it for the binder, backed it up to a drive because the last move in a paperwork fight is not winning. It's keeping proof of the win. And the most telling part? They never apologized. They called it administrative error. That's what systems call a mistake when they don't want responsibility attached. But I didn't need an apology. I needed the file corrected. I needed the meter stopped. I needed closure. And the only reason I got it was because I forced their story to match their documents. Then, 2 days later, Jordan emailed again. Short message. No hard feelings. We're revising inspection procedures. That was the quiet admission I never expected. Not guilt, maintenance. Because if a board changes procedure after your case, that's the real consequence. That's justice served in a boring, everyday way. Not dramatic, effective. And if you're wondering, did Renee ever acknowledge it? Not directly, but the next month, notices started arriving with photos attached. Not always, but enough to show someone learned something. After the closure letter, the neighborhood went back to normal. Same beige walls, same trimmed hedges, same quiet street. But the way I saw it changed. Because once you learn how a system can bill you without proof, you don't forget. I didn't tell the whole block. I didn't post on a community page. I didn't make it a spectacle. I did something more useful. I shared one lesson with the neighbor who stopped me earlier. I said, keep it in writing. Ask for the file. Save everything. That's it. Because in places like this, the loudest person isn't always the one who wins. The most organized person wins. And here's the clean aftershock. The HOA started attaching photos to notices more often. Not because they became nicer, because they became cautious. When a board learns that an owner will read the record, they stop leaning on vague phrases. Records indicate becomes, Here's the date. That's improvement. Not perfect, but better than autopilot. Now, let's land this with the 3 moves that actually mattered. Move 1. Written only. Phone calls vanish. Writing stays. Move 2. Yes or no questions. Are fines accruing today? What date is the inspection? Where is the policy published? Those questions slice through fog. Move 3. Minutes. If the board refuses to answer, you put the refusal into the record. Because a refusal in minutes is a receipt. Here's the bigger point. This wasn't about trash cans. It was about whether an organization could charge a homeowner thousands based on a sloppy file and then hide the file. And once I showed their evidence didn't match my home, the only honest move would have been to pause everything immediately. They didn't. They stalled. They hedged. They tried to keep the machine running until I got tired. That's why this felt personal, even if it wasn't, because the pressure was real. So, AIDA, for pushing back, for demanding a vote, for asking to correct minutes, for sending certified letters? No, I didn't insult anyone. I didn't dox anyone. I didn't threaten anyone. I asked for accuracy. And if accuracy is difficult, then the system is built wrong. One last question for you. If you got that $10,000 notice, and the HOA refused to show proof, would you pay to make it disappear? Or would you build the file and force the correction? Either choice has a cost, but here's what I learned. Specific beats vague. A timestamp beats ongoing. A fence color beats records indicate. A delivered letter beats we never got it. A closure letter beats we'll see. And that's the quiet version of justice served. Not fireworks, just a machine forced to stop, because the paper trail wouldn't let it lie. Disclaimer: this story is presented for entertainment and educational discussion. Names and details may be changed for privacy. Nothing here is legal advice. If you've ever dealt with an HOA that hides the proof, hit like so more people see this. Now tell me in the comments, would you pay to stop the pressure or build the file and fight it? And if you want the next paper trail win story, subscribe. I post these regularly.